Today we are traveling about 24 miles to the southeast of the Old Colony History Museum to historic Johnny Cake Hill in New Bedford. Founded in 1830, the New Bedford Port Society maintains the historic Seamen's Bethel and Mariners' Home. Completed in 2017, the Port Society complex underwent a large renovation to preserve and make accessible these two historic treasures. The buildings are now connected and work together as a home to honor and educate on the city's working waterfront and its maritime community, and enhances the Whaling Historical National Park as a worldwide tourist destination. The term Bethel comes from two Hebrew words, Beth and El. Beth means house and El means God, so it is a seaman's house of God or a seaman's church. The Seaman's Bethel is immortalized in the classic Moby Dick, written by Herman Melville, who attended services here. Serving the maritime community for over 175 years, the Seaman's Bethel remains active today and hosts dozens of weddings, christenings, and memorial services each year. We're excited to take a closer look around these important historic properties.
My name is Kimberly Abbott, and I am the Operations Manager for the New Bedford Port Society. The New Bedford Port Society makes up the Seaman's Bethel and Mariners' Home here in downtown New Bedford. The Port Society was erected in 1832. The organization itself was established in 1830, and the building, the chapel itself, was built for $5,000. And it commenced in 1832. The Mariners' Home was actually a donation to us. The Mariners' Home was donated by the Roach family, which is the same family from the Roach-Jones Stuff House. The chapel's always been the main building of the Port Society. It's still a working chapel as of today. We do a number of baptisms, weddings, and memorial services annually. I would say we do about 300 baptisms a year. It's not uncommon to have 5 to 7 baptisms a weekend. We're open Wednesday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. and we're open to the public. The only time that we would close is if we had a private baptism going on, or a wedding, or a memorial service. We have 5 services that we do annually. So we have the memorial service, and we have a procession that leaves from Johnny Cake Hill, the Seaman's Bethel, and we go all the way down to the State Pier. And during the Memorial Day service, we list off the names of all the fishermen that were lost at sea, which is very touching for the families to be a part of, and to hear their loved ones' names be called out, and then we ring a bell. That's one of our main services. We also have the Thanksgiving service, which is the Fisherman's Thanksgiving service. And we have the Christmas candlelight service. The other really big program that we're a part of is the Moby Dick Marathon in conjunction with the Whaling Museum. The Whaling Museum brings in, I would say, 1,500 to 2,000 people for this Moby Dick Marathon. They read cover to cover at around 1:30 p.m. The people who are lucky enough to get a lottery seat here at the Bethel, they come for chapter 7, 8, and 9, and it's read here upstairs. And then you'll see the pulpit once we go up. 99% of our collection is housed at the Whaling Museum. As far as letters from captains to their wives, just all the historic documents that we couldn't temperature control house here is at the Whaling Museum, because they have a huge storage area that could definitely do better than here. What we have here is some artifacts that we've actually found in the walls during the $4.3 million renovation that commenced in 2017. This boat was definitely not found in the wall. This boat was given to us by a family. But a lot of the logbooks, planking from the Bark Wanderer, which is a whaling ship. A lot of the silver that you see here on display was 100% found either buried in the walls or behind doors that we just have never opened. So we're in the bottom level of the Seamen's Bethel right now, and this level is called the Salt Box. This was originally used as a schoolhouse for whalemen. Whalemen would sign contracts at 14 years old to go on these whaling voyages, and they did not know how to read and write. They would get back from a 48-month whaling voyage, and they would have pennies given to them because they didn't know what they were signing as far as contracts for their pay. The Quakers had a big role in helping the whalers learn how to read and write in this schoolhouse. Now, if you look at the pews, these are all original, by the way. If you look at the pews, they move. So people can sit across from one another and actually practice conversations. And to this day, this place is actually used for school groups. We host school groups from all over Massachusetts. Sometimes we get school groups from other states, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and they come in, and this is where they learn a little bit about the Seamen's Bethel before heading upstairs to see the chapel. The back two is Father Enoch Mudge. He was the first minister here. And when we get upstairs, I'll talk a little bit more about Herman Melville, but Enoch Mudge, Father Mudge, was actually Father Mapple in the story Moby Dick. That is his wife, Mrs. Mudge. And then all along the walls are portraits of some of the ministers that were here. We used to have house ministers that would be here for 5 or 6, 7, 8 years at a time. But right now we actually work with 5 local ministers that have their own congregations that they're a part of, but they do work here as far as officiating weddings, baptisms, and performing memorial services. During our $4.3 million renovation, one of the parts that we had to repair is the floor in the salt box. Now, once the construction crew lifted up the floor, they were met with these lovely pieces of wood that were holding up the building, essentially. And they're 100% dust right now, which we didn't know. Once the engineers and the construction crew actually took a look at the main boards that were holding up this building, they only gave it maybe one good winter storm away from collapsing. They were really, really, really badly termite infested. This is the front entrance to the Bethel from the street, and if you're here for a particular service, this would be the entrance that you come in through. Originally, prior to 2017, this was the only entrance, but you will see a lobby side entrance later on. So as you come up the stairs from the front entrance, you will come into the main level of the Seamen's Bethel Chapel. You see this beautiful model ship behind me. This was not original to the building. This was actually put and built in the room in 1961 after the release of the 1950s Gregory Peck edition of the film Moby Dick. It was, the film was released in New Bedford. All the major theaters were showing it in New Bedford. Gregory Peck was in New Bedford. And after the movie, everybody worldwide would come here to view this pulpit. And it was not here because the original film was filmed in a church in Ireland. So we had to make everybody happy, and that is one of the things that if you do visit, you will read on the walking guide that we give you why we actually had to put this pulpit in. It does serve a purpose. A lot of people choose to get married and the officiant be up in the pulpit. We do a lot of our Christmas and Thanksgiving services with the minister actually in the pulpit also. Sometimes when we hold annual meetings for our large membership, we give our financial or development reports from the pulpit. So it does serve a purpose. Behind me, you will see a marble list of fishermen's names, and this particularly is called a tablet. That was funded by the New Bedford Port Society, and I'm not sure if you can see it from here, but first it will list a ship's name and the date the ship went down, and then the people who lost their life on that particular ship below the ship's name. These tablets are pretty much grave markers for fishermen who unfortunately lost their life at sea. If you look in the corner there, when you only see 5 names on the in memory of in the corner there, that is actually called a cenotaph. The difference between a tablet and a cenotaph is a tablet lists many ships and many men's names. And it's not just designated to one ship and one crew. And the tablet is funded by us. The cenotaph is actually funded by the family or the captain of the ship or the owner of the ship. And those men unfortunately lost their lives fishing, and it's a very dangerous profession. We actually have many family members that will come in regularly, and they will come in and they will sit down and they will just pray in peace to their loved ones, because if you're lost at sea, you don't actually have a grave, so this is their grave, and there's nothing like it anywhere in the world. We tried to have, during the renovation, prior to 2017, we tried to have all of the cenotaphs insured, just because they're just irreplaceable, and Lloyd's of London would not insure them, because there's nothing to compare them to. So one of the most sought after seat in the chapel is Herman Melville's pew, and you'll see that soon. It is marked by a plaque, but interesting little secret. Before, we actually had a fire in the 1860s, and before that fire, the church was actually facing east, so all the pews were turned this way. Now, in the log books, it tells us that Herman Melville's pew was second to last from the back left. Now, if that was true, this would actually be his pew, and if you read this cenotaph here, this was here before the fire, and this was here before Moby Dick was written. And this actually tells you the story of Moby Dick. So we think that Herman Melville got some of his inspiration for the story from this tablet. Right now we're in the adjoining lobby that joins the Seamen's Bethel and the Mariners' Home. The yellow building that you see right to the left-hand side of you is the Mariners' Home. And it is not open to the public to view, unfortunately. Right now, all nonprofits rent office space, including the Port Society is on 3rd floor, that's us. But the Mariners' Home played a very, very, very big role in helping the whalemen back in the 1800s and early 1900s. The downtown area was full of brothels, and during the whaling days, as soon as ships would come into port, there would be ladies of the night trying to lure the whalemen in, and this organization played a huge part in the moral improvement of seamen, 100%. They would come into the Mariners' Home, they would have a shower, dinner, cup of coffee, and then they would come over to the Seamen's Bethel for their church service. And the Mariners' Home, in conjunction with the Seamen's Bethel Chapel, they would make sure every single whaleman had a Bible, and they would be given a Bible from us. So yes, the Mariners' Home served as a rooming house. It also was a safe place for whalemen to be, because they would be out on the sea for 4 years. A typical whaling voyage is about 48 months. They would come back, and some of them would just come right here. Some of them would get ready to go back out on a whaling voyage within a day. So this place was very important. Another fun fact, that this building was actually not in the location that it's in now. This building in the 1800s rolled down the cobblestone street to actually be placed in this location, because this building was a donation from the Roach family. thank you for coming on the special tour with me. You could come and visit Wednesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. During the spring and summer, we extend our hours to Tuesday through Sunday. We are always closed on Mondays. We do have volunteers here to answer any questions, and if you'd like, give us a follow. Our Facebook is the New Bedford Port Society. Thank you.